Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome again to the Pulse here on HBCU Go. I'm Tolly Carr, along with James Hadnot and Liv Antilla. And as the rule goes, we only say it one time. Maybe we'll say it again after the break. But from this point forward, it is Liv for Hoops. James, look, let's welcome Liv, her first time here on the Pulse. How you doing, Liv?
I'm doing great. How are you, Tolly?
Doing good, doing good. So we got James back in the mix. We got Liv. Let's start here, guys. We've all seen it, and if you haven't seen it, you're just not paying attention to HBCU sports. A couple of weeks ago, we had a game, and it was Tuskegee at Morehouse. They're playing in Atlanta, men's basketball game. Morehouse wins. The basketball team is having a great season. And afterwards, Benji Taylor, head coach of Tuskegee, is ultimately led off the court in handcuffs after having a conversation, maybe spirited, but it was a conversation with a safety officer. And his contention was that there were people on the floor during the handshake line that did not belong there, meaning they were not members of the Morehouse or the Tuskegee basketball team. And he didn't like that. Rightfully so. He wanted the officer to do something about it, but instead it was Taylor who was led off in handcuffs. Liv, I want to start with you. You know a lot of these coaches personally. I was kind of chatting with you online when all this went down. When you saw Benji Taylor led off of the court in handcuffs, your initial thought was what?
I was shocked. I couldn't believe that that was how that situation transpired, especially when you watched the actual video footage of individuals who recorded in real time of how he came over. He was very composed, but he had real concerns because, of course, you would. You don't want something to happen at the end of a very intense and competitive basketball game. Like, you want to ensure the safety of your team as well as the safety of the whole entire environment. And so for the safety officer to go as far as to handcuff him just to walk him off the floor, I was really shocked and flabbergasted and really sad for now that Coach Taylor's image was all over the internet. It was on every news article. It was picked up by ESPN. It was everywhere that now it was just a black coach in handcuffs being escorted off the floor. And that became the story. And it gave people kind of the leeway to be like, well, what actually happened? We're telling you what actually happened. There's video footage of what actually happened. And people kind of now turning and questioning Coach Taylor of there has to be more to the story. And so I was completely shocked.
James, you've had a front row seat to plenty of handshake lines in basketball. Have you ever seen anything like that?
Absolutely not. I was, again, flabbergasted is a great word to use because it's very perturbing, it's mind-blowing and mind-boggling to see a coach who is honestly just trying, as Liv said, to make sure that his players are safe and really to instruct the officer on what he should be doing because the football players should not be coming onto the floor. And if they are going to come onto the floor, it should be after Tuskegee's basketball team has gone to the locker room. And so for Coach Taylor just to be bringing that up and for it to go as far as him to be brought into the back in handcuffs was just mind-boggling. And so I've never seen anything like that. I don't know why that was the decision that was made. And again, to be completely honest, it's as Liv said, it's a black eye because that is now the image that is across the internet. And it also just says Tuskegee coach arrested at basketball game. And so that then gives everyone a license to think about or discuss, what could have happened? And so it should never get to that point. He wasn't pointing in his face. He wasn't making a scene. And so the short answer to your question is no, I've never seen anything like that. And I hope to never see anything like that again.
Yeah, no physical contact was made. It was simply a conversation that escalated very, very quickly. Some things happened afterwards. So let's kind of establish the timeline. The SIAC was the first to come out and make a public statement where they fined Morehouse an undisclosed amount and basically said that they found them in violation of protocol during the game, not allowing the visiting team to make a safe exit off of the court. Now, Morehouse never made, at least through this past weekend heading into the beginning of the week, a week later, never made a public statement, but they did have an internal statement that came from Dr. Bowman, the president of Morehouse, that he sent to students, staff, alumni, and faculty. And during that statement, he even said, look, it's a very long statement, but I found it interesting. He said there was an escalated incident that resulted in Tuskegee's head coach Benji Taylor's brief detainment and escort off the court by a safety officer. After asserting there was a breach in game management and safety protocols, the college issued an apology directly to Coach Taylor on the night of the game, as detainment did not reflect the desires that we have for Morehouse. So they're basically saying, yes, that should not have happened. But it happened very publicly because it was, it hits the internet and it spreads like wildfire. But that apology did not happen publicly, if you will. And it was not a forward-facing statement. It just became public because obviously something like that leaks very quickly. And Morehouse also took issue with the fine from the SIAC and also the fact that they were not a part of the investigation, and they thought that it was setting a precedent that could ripple beyond. And the president, Dr. Bowman, said, look, I was there. I didn't see anything at the end of the game that reflected anything that I haven't seen at other sporting events. Guys, everyone's kind of heard about both statements. James, we'll go back to you. I thought it sounded to me like sorry, but with a very big but on the end.
Yeah, I think, again, you have to cover yourself because there was a mistake. It's an obvious mistake that was been made. And so you have to say something. You'd rather, as you said, be public, but you have to say something. The idea of it having to be a full investigation on what happened or getting both sides is ideal in the sense that you'd have to be assuming, though, that Coach Taylor didn't do anything wrong. If there was a necessity for there to be a full investigation, then the SIAC wouldn't have come out immediately and said, hey, this was wrong and you're getting a fine. So I just, again, it shouldn't have even got to that point. And so to give it even more legs or even continue talking about it is just something that becomes difficult because I have had conversations with Coach Taylor. I've done Tuskegee games. You just know that this is not where this should have gone. He's not somebody that deserved for this to happen. And so they, with Morehouse making that statement, they have every right to put out their feelings on it. But again, there has to be some reprimandment for the action, because if there's no reprimandment, then this could happen in other places or it could happen in other times, and that just shouldn't happen.
And this could very well go beyond the fine that the SIAC levied, because Coach Taylor afterward obtained counsel. And so this is now a legal proceeding. It could go all the way through, we don't know how far it could go through the legal system. But I kind of feel like if a strong I'm sorry very publicly would have happened immediately, I mean, like Saturday night immediately, then maybe this, could have been a moot issue, coming, 2 weeks later almost. Where do you think this ends up based on everything that we know right now?
I don't even know where it's going to end up, simply because I don't know what his counsel is advising or how far they want to go. I do agree. I think because this was such a public incident that went across social media, that a public apology should be made. I believe that's the right thing to do to him. Yes, I'm cool. You privately apologize to him, but I believe he deserves a public one because it is his face and his hands in handcuffs all over social media with his name. I really don't know where this goes. I was happy that the SIAC put out a statement almost immediately after reviewing and said exactly what policy it was that, they found that they were not following the guidelines on. A lot of people wanted to know the amount of money because they were like, well, how do we know? Like, was this really worth it? But I do think the SIAC handled it correctly, being swift, conducting their investigation and putting out the statement that, this was not right. You guys are fine. But who knows where it goes from here, simply because I am not the man who was handcuffed and escorted off the floor. And so I feel he has every right to do whatever he feels is right for his name, and how social media has taken that and ran.
Liv, we'll end the conversation with you here because I think you're in a very unique position when you look at this at a micro and micro and macro level. Look, Liv, you're living in Minnesota. You are seeing crazy examples of, and I don't even want to call them law enforcement. I'll just call them what everybody calls them, ICE, going simply too far with detaining people. The methods they're using, like that is on one extreme. You have also played basketball in intimate arenas. You have played HBCU basketball. You know what it's like to have people heckling you, to have students who are very intense, and it's all part of the game. And Liv, you even know what it's like when the game is over. I mean, some arenas, it's common practice. I know it was when I was in school for, kind of be like a little bit of party on the floor after the game is over. So just having all of your recent experiences, your past experiences, what do you think is safe, fair, and expected for an environment that can be unique and culturally authentic at a HBCU basketball game?
I truly believe, I think it's fair to allow the opposing team to leave the floor before everyone goes on. Yes, it's very common for the stands to come down. We'll have the cheerleaders, the band, every single athlete who participates in the university's athletic come down. But if a coach is going as far to be like, you need to wait, that means there's a certain type of energy in the game. And I just believe we don't want those type of incidences happening in our games, because we know how social media runs when it comes to HBCU specific incidences. When it's pertain to whether it's a fight, a tussle, any type of thing, they run even farther with it. And so, I think it is, in order to keep an environment safe and minimize anything from transpiring, to allow the opposing team to leave the floor. No one's sticking around. Like, especially if you lose, you're just trying to get your stuff and leave the floor. So to allow them that space to do that and it be safe and not have any bumps or extra type of words that could ignite, because in tight games, emotions are running high. Like, athletes can tend to be emotional people, especially in rivalries, which HBCU rivalries are so intense that it's okay to just let a team leave the floor before you allow everyone to come down and do the usual party that happens after these matches.
Yeah, and when it comes to rivalries, I don't know if you guys think differently, but let me tell you, there is hardly any that are pettier than Tuskegee and Morehouse. That is one of the pettiest rivalries that exist, and it's all fun and games, and we all enjoy it. But having coaching while black to be one of the latest things to put on your bingo card takes it a little too far. Mm-hmm. Well, we won't take it too far. We'll leave that part of the conversation right there. When we come back, oh man, Liv. James, we're just going to have to let her cook. We're talking women's hoops, and no one shines better than Liv for hoops. That's all coming up next on The Pulse. Welcome back to The Pulse here on HBCU Go. Tolly Carr, Liv for hoops. Liv Antilla if you want to write her a check. And James Hadnot. All right, Liv, we have, if you look at the top of the top, the cream of the crop across the board, you got, Alabama A&M. You got Winston-Salem State, you got Miles, you got Fayetteville State, I guess maybe Alcorn State, you got University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, you got to throw Howard in there. Oh, where do you want to start? Liv, where do you want to jump in when we talk about the top teams in HBCU women's hoops right now?
I guess we can start on the one that has one of the longest active streaks going right now, and that's Alabama A&M women's basketball, coached by Dawn Thornton. They're on a 10-game win streak, which that's really hard to win that many games in a row, especially after dropping that first one. They've looked just dominant since then. While they have had some close calls, especially this past week at Southern, they're showing that their depth, their length, their athleticism is truly building with their momentum as the season progresses.
James, you prepare like no one else. We've had Alabama A&M on our air this year. What jumps out to you with the diva and her squad on top in the SWAC?
Yeah, for Coach Thornton, she, again, runs a very tight ship. It was funny. I go back to last year when I was going to one of her practices, and she had to make sure, okay, who is that guy? Because I don't need anybody else going to be here and kind of learning. But as soon as she found out it was me, it was all good. And I say that because she runs a fantastic practice. Her program, what she's been able to do over the past 2 seasons has been wonderful. And she has a star in Kayla Walker, right? And so I remember last year when they were in the SWAC tournament and they couldn't find a way to beat Alcorn State. And just the look on Kayla Walker's face after that game was over, she had to be consoled by Coach Thornton. And I was just hoping that, okay, she would get a chance to kind of come back and play this year because they would have something to prove. And they've shown it this entire year. They played with that chip on their shoulder. They played with that point to prove this entire year. And so when you have a star player like Kayla and then you're coached by a coach like Coach Thornton, there's no reason why there shouldn't be so much success. And that's what we've seen from them. And so that's, to me, because when you have that connection between your star player and your head coach, you can work in and you do a really good job.
Liv, Alcorn State, are they going to be the closest competition for A&M in the SWAC? We thought it was Southern. I'm not saying it's not, but they have lost a couple. Alcorn right now sitting in second place.
I think Alcorn wishes they had that game back because they don't meet again this entire SWAC season in the regular season. And so to be dominated the way they did, getting hit with the 40 ball, like I know they wish they had that game back, but I have to respect the Louisiana schools and even Bethune-Cookman. 3 very close calls over these past 2 weeks, Bethune taking them to losing by only 5, a big shot by Kariah Beck to give them that lift that they needed. And then she turns around against Southern and hits game-winning free throws with 1 second left on the clock to beat Southern on the road too. But even Grambling put up a great fight against them, only losing to A&M by 4, and it came down to that last final minute. So it's hard to say who is going to, because I feel like the SWAC tournament time is always crazy. I would like to say Alcorn, but I feel like it's these other schools that may give them a run for their money, because when you're riding high on a 10-game win streak, you have an even bigger mark on your back. I think everyone takes every game very seriously, but they all want to be the one to be like, oh, we ended that win streak. Like it's over now. And so I think they have a huge target on their back. And so every game they really have to go to war. They're showing they're winning through adversity and close games, which shows the making of a championship team. But I don't want to I really respect Coach Carlos Funches and what he's doing, but I feel like these other teams have kind of figured it out a little bit more, that they may be the ones who meet and things may be figured out. But A&M is the team to beat right now.
And Southern has a Power 5 win this year. So, we cannot forget about what they did earlier in the year, and a Power 4, because we don't call it Power 5 anymore. They have a Power 4 win from a Big 12 school. And so, Southern has won this league multiple times. And so you got to beat the champ to be the champ. And so that's another reason why you cannot sleep on Southern, because as well as the regular season is going for A&M, we know the SWAC is a one bid league. And so that's why that tournament is so fun and why everything is so important once you get to that time of the year. And so, as you can see, I'm chomping at the bit to get to March.
All right, let's speed through some of these other conferences. God, we could talk about the SWAC all day. Let's go over to the SIAC. Liv, Miles has been killing it all year, but I keep looking at Edward Waters. And look, there might be a little bias because Edward Waters had to get it from the mud, just joined the SIAC. They're coming up through the ranks, but it's not a fluke. Look, shout out to Miles, but that Edward Waters team is balling.
Yeah, they're also on a 10-game win streak, and they've just found their groove. They're sitting at the top of the SIAC East Division right now, and when you're winning 10, they already played Miles, and they beat them earlier in the season. They meet again on the 19th, so that's definitely a game to watch, but they're just so deep. They only have 2 players averaging just over double figures, and so they do it with defense. That's how they get it done. They're one of the best defensive teams in the SIAC. They are number one, and it's not close. Like the margin of defense, they're plus 10 of the number 2 defensive team. So they don't lead in any other category. So they're just handling business on the defensive end in order to win these games and currently be 19-4 overall with only 1 division loss in the SIC, which, like you said, they just joined. And so they've grinded to the top.
Yeah,
all right.
Clark Atlanta. Oh, real quick. That Clark Atlanta game was the one, and that was our last loss, I think, back on December 11th. And so they're beating teams by an average of 28.5 points over their last 4. And so that defense, that dominance is definitely there, and that's why they're at the top.
James, what I was going to get ready to ask you, look, if Edward Waters won, it would make sense on paper, but like for the culture, like what would that mean, the new kid on the block, to get a conference title this early?
It means everything, right? Because there are so many different teams that have won this league. Miles has also been the team to beat the past couple of seasons, and even though they had a great game versus Tuskegee in the championship game, Tuskegee beat them last year. That's why, again, that tournament is the most important thing. You could be as good as you want all year, but we saw it for the men's side in the SIAC last year. Savannah State, as a 5 seed, swept and came through and won the league. And they've only been in the league for just a couple of years themselves. And so it's the same type of energy when you can kind of come into a new space, take over that space. I think the term is walk in your trap and take over your trap. So that's what Edward Waters is trying to do.
All right, here's what we're going to do. Liv, I'm going to give you the MEAC. James, I'm going to give you the CIAA. Liv, got 3 teams up there that I really like. Which one do you like the best? Howard, Norfolk State, UMES?
Putting me on the spot. Just out of who is beating the other 2 top teams, I'm going to give the nod to UMES right now. But they do, all 3 of those teams, they play each other this weekend. So UMES does have to play Howard and Norfolk State on the road. So they'll be tested. But, they are back. That winter break kind of threw them off, and that's why they ended up dropping that game. But you have to put respect on it. They're still sitting in first place, winning the tiebreaker over Howard because they beat them previously. And another team that just gets it done as a unit. They really don't have any standouts. Ashanti Lynch is their leader. She's their veteran. But when you have 4 players ranked in the top 25 of points per game in the MEAC, you have 4 players ranked in the top 25 for rebounding. They are doing it by committee. And what a second season for Coach Willis over there, just dominating and finding her way to the top. She was not content with 3rd place last year, and she's showing that UMES is definitely a team that needs to be considered as a team for the championship.
All right, James, over in the CIAA, are we just going to have to just go ahead and schedule a Winston-Salem State, Fayetteville State, just rematch, rubber match? They've both beaten each other. They've been the top 2 teams on the ladies' side in the CIAA this year.
The funny thing about that is Virginia State is always going to have something to say. Or they've been a team that has, found their way into the Final Four in the CIAA tournament these past couple of seasons. And so I do think that Virginia State is going to have something to say in their side of the bracket. But Fayetteville State, there's a reason why they're the 2-time reigning champs, right? They again, I say it again, it's not a cliche. You have to beat the champ to be the champ. And there's a certain type of moxie, there's a certain type of understanding that it takes to win a championship. And Fayetteville State has done it consistently. And Kanaya O'Neal, she could get a triple-double, realistically. Like, she can do whether with steals, with scoring, with assists. And the game is so slow for her. And so that's the player to always watch for me when it comes to Fayetteville State. And that's why I like the idea of just kind of giving it to Winston-Salem, but there's a reason they play the game. So you have to really look. I'm really looking forward to that CIAA tournament because you have Virginia and you have Virginia State. But for the Rams and for Fayetteville State, they've been the teams kind of to beat.
Well, it's out of arm's reach, but if I was in another room here from Carr Central, I would reach over and grab my Winston-Salem State diploma and show it to you guys. Liv, they'd actually carved mine out in stone. I was the last year before they transitioned to paper. But hey, I'm impartial. I'm not partial. I'm unbiased. But
member of the media.
Yeah, I'm a journalist. Well, look, we've had a lot of fun. We could talk HBCU hoops forever and ever, but that's all the time we have today. Liv, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to have you back here on the Pulse. And James, looking forward to your call and every call you have coming up for the rest of the year here on HBCU Go. I'm Tolly Carr. I will see you guys a little later.